The smoke rose like a dark prayer over the alien city. Beneath twin suns, the plaza burned with the crackle of pyres. The air shimmered, the scent of scorched oil and flesh thick enough to taste. Above it all, the alien priests chanted, a slow, terrible rhythm marking the fall of a sinner. Her name was Lyrathel, and she had been condemned. Stripped of her noble crest and wings of light, she knelt at the center of the pyre, her wrists bound in luminous metal that hissed against her skin. The people, her own kind, watched in silence. Some wept. Most looked away. And one human stood at the edge of the crowd, fists clenched. Captain Elias Trent had seen war, famine, and planets die. But he had never seen faith used like this, turned into a weapon. He'd come to the Ilari homeworld to negotiate a trade agreement. Instead, he'd stumbled into a public execution. The accused was a highborn Ilari, once a commander in their defense fleet. Rumor said she defied a sacred order, saving human refugees during the asteroid siege. To them, that act had been heresy. To Elias, it had been humanity. He couldn't forget her eyes, the same golden hue as the setting suns, when she saw him in the crowd. She didn't plead. She didn't beg. She just held his gaze as if to say, "Don't watch. Remember." Then the torches were lowered. The fire flared, blue-white, too hot to be natural. The crowd gasped as the energy field ignited around her, designed not to consume instantly, but to purify slowly. And Elias moved. "Trent, don't," shouted his aide, but it was too late. He shoved through the crowd, drew a sidearm, and fired at the restraint generator. Sparks exploded as the energy field flickered. The priest screamed. He vaulted over the railing, boots hitting the platform with a clang. Heat blasted him, scalding his face. The fire licked at his armor, melting the paint. But he reached her, lifted her from the flames, and felt the raw power searing through his gloves. Her voice was faint. "You shouldn't be here." "Too late," he grunted, tearing the shackles free. "We're both sinners now." The crowd was in chaos. Guards shouted. Someone fired a plasma bolt that scorched past his shoulder. He ducked, grabbed Lyrathel tighter, and ran through the fire. When he burst from the pyre, flames trailing from his coat, the people fell silent. For one impossible heartbeat, the sight of a human carrying their condemned angel stunned them all. Then the alarms began to scream. He didn't stop running until the city vanished behind the cliffs. The heat had melted through his gloves, his hands blistered and red. Lyrathel's body glowed faintly in his arms, her alien biology fighting to regenerate, but barely holding on. He laid her on the rocky ground, panting. "You're alive." Her eyes fluttered open. "You've damned yourself for nothing." "Nothing." He laughed once, bitter. "You saved my people, my crew. You think I'd let them burn you for that?" Her breath hitched. "Elias, they will hunt you. Let them." He looked out over the valley, the twin suns descending into molten gold, and for the first time, she saw fear in his human eyes. Not for himself, but for what he'd chosen to defy. For days they moved through the wastelands. The Ilari called it the Scourged Land, desert plains twisted by old wars and solar storms. Elias guided her through canyons, wrapped her in his jacket at night, and shared the last of his ration packs. Lyrathel's burns slowly healed, though her once radiant wings were gone, scorched down to pale scars. She said little, but sometimes, when he thought she slept, she whispered prayers in her old tongue, half curses, half forgiveness. One night, as they sat beneath the cold stars, she finally asked, "Why, Elias? Why risk everything for me?" He stared into the flickering fire. "Because no one ever risked anything for us." She tilted her head. Humans? He nodded. When Earth burned, when we begged the stars for mercy, most races turned away, said we were primitive, violent, hopeless. But you were different. You broke your law to save a single human ship. Mine. She was silent for a long time. Then, softly, I remember. By the time they reached the border mountains, her strength had returned. But the hunters were close, silver ships streaking across the horizon. Lyrathel could hear them before he could. Her senses were keener, her instincts sharp.
They found us, she said.
Elias checked his blaster. Half the charge left. Then we keep moving. No, she touched his hand. You can't run from a world. Watch me. She smiled. A faint, broken thing. You're impossible. Human, he corrected. The sound of engines thundered closer. She stood, golden eyes glowing faintly. If they capture me, they'll kill you too. Let me surrender. They'll think you coerced me. No, he said simply. Elias, please. He took her by the shoulders. Lyra, you gave me my life. Let me give you yours. Something in her eyes changed then, resolve hardening into defiance. When the Ilari ships landed, they found the mountain pass lit with plasma fire. Elias fought like a man possessed, using every rock, every ledge, every ounce of fury he had. His blaster ran dry, his arm bled, and still he stood his ground. And Lyrathel, watching him, remembered what it meant to believe, not in gods or laws, but in someone who refused to bow. With a cry that shook the cliffs, she raised her hands and unleashed her buried power. Light flared from her body, pure, golden radiance that seared the air. The Ilari soldiers staggered, blinded. Her brand, the mark of sin burned into her skin, ignited. But this time, it wasn't punishment. It was freedom. When it was over, the soldiers were gone. Some fled, some unconscious. The ships abandoned. Lyrathel collapsed beside Elias, the light fading from her hands. He was barely conscious, armor scorched and cracked. You're insane, she murmured weakly. He managed a grin. You're welcome. She leaned close, resting her forehead against his. They'll call us traitors. Then we'll give them something to fear. For the first time in centuries, the sinner and the human shared a laugh under alien stars. Weeks later, whispers spread across the galaxy. A branded angel and her human savior, leading refugees, striking supply convoys, freeing prisoners marked for purification. The Ilari priests called it blasphemy. The humans called it hope. No one knew where they came from, only that when the night burned gold, someone had defied a god again.